Well, welcome to season 2 of Neighboring. Neighboring is a podcast where NeighborLink, we take the time to try to ask our friends and our community members and our neighbors, what does it mean to be a good neighbor? In season 2, we're attempting to even ask another question. What makes a healthy neighborhood healthy? This season, we're trying to do something a little bit different, trying to add some different guests, add a little length, get a little more conversational than we have been in the past. And today we are joined with Katie Jo, one of our favorite restaurateurs, community figures, and all around nice friend.
Thanks.
So we're excited.
That's a pretty nice, that's a nice thing to say.
Well, good. We have an intro that I want to read to make sure that the people know, because our dear friend Lindsay Ray wrote this intro for you, and I want you to hear it, and I want it to be read. Katie Jo is Fort Wayne famous for many reasons. She is not only known around town as the Brava's hot dog lady, which she's no longer at Brava's, but so familiar from hanging from a food truck, slinging hot dogs, and yelling at you from across the parking lot because she wants to connect. But also for slinging sunshine and spreading joy. Katie is someone you find at a lot of local events, scooping people up who are strangers and transforming them into close friends. She cares for the people she interacts with in a really extraordinary way. Everyone that knows her feels the genuine love and care she has for them. She has a way of turning brief interactions she has with people into long-lasting feelings of gratitude and kindness. She looks after everyone around her. Are they well? She asks. Do they have what they need? Can she do anything for them? Do they realize how unique they are? Off the clock, she makes a point to be a cheerleader, encouraging people to keep believing in themselves. She pours herself out to the people and gives it all. So she gives it all she's got. She's transforming our community with each and every interaction she has with people. She's one of a kind. She's Katie Jo, the Sunshine Slinger. It's not a bad ode. How do you feel about that when you?
That's a lot of words. It's a lot of positive, awesome feedback.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of responsibility sometimes with those words, but it's exciting. And it is mostly, it's true. I'm pretty passionate about the people I'm surrounded with and, the people I know and the people I don't know. So it feels really good to hear those nice things said about me.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. We always need to receive and hear these things.
It is nice to hear that, yeah.
Well, introduce yourself for those that don't know Katie Jo from social media or just from around Fort Wayne. Introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, how long have you lived or been a part of Fort Wayne, and what you've been up to.
Well, I'm Katie Jo. I moved to Fort Wayne. It's been a little over 3 years, and I moved to Fort Wayne because I wanted to be near people that I cared about. I was living in Kindleville at the time and had some really good friends in Fort Wayne and had gotten into a couple of local business communities. I get tattooed at Black Anvil Tattoo, and when Brava's opened their restaurant, I was a big fan of their burger shop, and it just felt like it was the right time in my life to make the move. And I was lucky enough to work for a company. I worked for a company that owned Subways, and they had one in Fort Wayne, so I just said, hey, I'm ready to move. Can you move me to Fort Wayne? And they made it happen. So literally from the time I decided I wanted to move, it was 2 months later I was here. And quickly I moved to Southwood Park, which is in the 07, my favorite zip code in Fort Wayne. But I'm biased, I live there. So.
Sure.
So I just quickly became a regular at Brava's and developed that friendship with Bo to where he offered me the position as the food truck manager, and that's when I really started to realize that there was a pretty cool community in Fort Wayne that I was going to get to be a part of. And the last 3 years have flown by, and I've just recently decided to step away from Brava's and kind of pursue a different career that wasn't as high stress and maybe a little less responsibility for myself as far as my role at work. And so now I'm going to be working at Toll's Intermediate School, which is part of the Fort Wayne Community Schools. And I'm going to be working for another local restaurant a little bit more behind the scenes, which is something I'm not used to, but I think it'll be okay.
Sure.
It'll be fun. So, yeah, and I've just really, Fort Wayne has welcomed me, and Brava's provided me with a platform to really get to know a lot of people.
So you've become known for this idea of Slinging Sunshine. What does that mean?
So Slinging Sunshine started as a hashtag, and I kind of ripped it off from my brother.
Okay.
My brother works for Union Pacific, which is a railroad company, and his role with them is to move freight on the railroad. So he's a salesman, and he, in his travels with work, would take pictures, and he always used the hashtag Slinging Freight. And when I started with Brava's, I realized that social media is a big part of Brava's, and I realized that I was going to have the opportunity to use my personal social media to encourage people to come to Brava's and come see all the fun stuff we were doing. And I wanted to have a clever hashtag to use. And Slinging Sunshine, just naturally, I'm a big fan of alliteration.
Yeah. And
sunshine is something, a lot of times people tell me you're so sunny and your personality is so bright. And so it started as a hashtag. And it was just that for a long time, something that only I was using, and it was just a clever thing that I used. It really started to gain traction when I had Matt Plett do a logo for me. And then it was not just a hashtag, but you had this awesome graphic that was my face on a sunshine, which is, when he showed it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And I did that I participated in the 100 Culinary Queens through Old National this fall, and it was a fundraiser for Easter Seals. And so I know the community I'm a part of is full of people that are willing to spend money for good causes. And I was like, well, if I print a t-shirt, I can have something that people can, people can purchase, and I can donate that money to the fundraiser. So that's when Slinging Sunshine really kind of got big, which wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I obviously, from spending so much time in the public and gaining an awareness and building these relationships, the Sunshine got connected to you. It just seems like it's such a part of you. Have you always had this like really positive, outgoing demeanor? Like, have you always been the one that's kind of reaching out and including people and the kind of the go-to person?
I think it's something that my mother would argue I've had since a very young age. She likes to tell the story about when I was a little toddler and we were in Florida, and I was making friends with the strangers on the elevators. And so, and I remember when I was a kid growing up, always being the one that would, find the new kids in school and offer them a seat at the table and welcome them into my group of friends. It's something I think that my personality, I'm just very much want people to feel welcome and want them to feel comfortable and safe. I think it's important that people have somebody in their life that lets them know that, they think they're great and they're in their corner. So I would definitely say it's something that I've always had.
Was there ever a time that it was there ever a time where it like somewhat clicked for you between like, this is just who I am and the outpouring versus like really recognizing you had it and had it potentially as a gift, or it could be used as a gift? And when you became intentional, because from my perspective and a lot of people that we know, there's a difference when someone is just, that's coming out of them as a being, and which is one aspect, but when someone begins to understand it and begins to own that and take all the good and bad with it, but get really intentional with it. Was there ever a time for you that you can kind of connect back to?
Yeah, it's when I got Snapchat.
Okay.
Which it sounds silly.
No.
But Snapchat was a thing, and I didn't have it for a long time because I'm like, well, what do I need Snapchat for? But when I finally succumbed and said, okay, fine, I'll put Snapchat on my phone, I realized that I had this ability to connect with people that I wasn't seeing on a daily basis, and I was able to shine to them and let them know how much I love them and how important they are to me. I spent most of my 20s moving around a lot. And, you know, I was in Illinois and then South Dakota and the state of Washington. And to have, you know, this app on my phone that allowed me to interact in a fun, silly way, but also very intentional with, hey, I know I don't see you every day, but you still mean a lot to me. That's kind of, I would say, if I had to look back at like when it started becoming intentional, it was then. And then also when I started working with Bravas and I had a boss that was 100% behind me being myself. I've always worked in the service industry, and a lot of the restaurants that I've worked for in the past have, you know, there's rules and you have to look a certain way and you have to talk a certain way, and there's this box that they put you in.
Yeah.
And Bravas really was like, you make your own box, because it was a smaller company and they're still growing, and they didn't really have that like front of house presence, that like hospitality aspect.
Sure.
And so that's when I realized kind of that, wow, I can really be intentional with this and, you know, make a difference in people's lives slinging hot dogs.
Sure. I imagine 3 years on a food truck in all kinds of different environments, and even in the same spot, you know, week after week, you begin to connect with people. I think I would be really interested to hear from your perspective, like what does it look like to be in that position and to connect? How does your personality, how does the sunshine? What do you see in return from that in engagement? Like, can you see people like that go straight for you, or like can walk and, you know, walk past a truck and see if Katie's in, and then like if they see you, you go somewhere, they come to you? Like,
yeah, it's so when you serve people, so my first, like, I worked for Starbucks for a long time, and you know, my favorite was the drive-through, because it's so many regular repeats, and so you're seeing these people for a very short time, but you're seeing them every day. And if you make an effort to open and be yourself with them, I think it makes people feel comfortable, and it makes people feel safe, and like they can be themselves with you, and so they will open up to you. And it's crazy to think about how important these families or individuals became to me as the person that was taking their order, whether it was at one of the other restaurants or Bravas. When you have a product that's good and when you're offering good service, people latch on to that. Yeah. And it makes a difference, and they'll welcome you. And, you know, a lot of times food is, you know, a reason people, when they're celebrating, they'll, you know, oh, it's my birthday, we're going to go to Bravas. So then you get to partake in those special events, because you're the one that gets to serve them on their birthday or their wedding anniversary, or, you know, maybe even their wedding. We had wedding parties that would come into Bravas and eat, and that's just really cool to see that connection happen, when a lot of times people go out to eat places and there's no connection. You know, it's, what do you want? Okay, here you go. Thanks a lot. Have a good day. But when you are intentional about the way you interact with people and you genuinely care about them, they really open up. Yeah. Interesting.
One of the things on the first series of Neighboring, and one of the things we're just trying to learn at NeighborLink, and in general, part of this whole series is us trying to really engage and understand the culture around this idea of neighboring. Neighboring typically gets thrown into, or really only thought in the context of a neighborhood, where we live, the people to the left and to the right and around the block and those things. But when we do the type of work, we kind of look at neighboring can happen anywhere, and it's a state of mind, or it's an intentional spirit. And we obviously think that it can happen in a corporate environment, and we all get to choose to be neighbors wherever we're at, whether we're there for the first time or there every day. Curious from your perspective on that kind of idea and thought in terms of like a restaurant or a community, and how that plays a role, like when you see that type of behavior that you're trying to, and the spirit that you're putting out into the world, versus like maybe some other coworkers that don't necessarily quite have that kind of spirit. What happens in the minds of the people, experiencing the restaurant, for instance?
So that was the neat thing about the food truck, is that when your restaurant is on wheels, you're actually going into other communities. You know, Brava's, the restaurant, the brick and mortar is, you know, in the Oakdale neighborhood, so that's the home base.
Yeah.
But first thing I think about is like going up north to Ted's. I like to joke that, I don't need to go north of downtown because we live in our little bubble.
Sure.
But it was really fun when you're up there, even just once a week. And I don't know if you've ever been to Ted's on food truck night, but it's nuts. There's people everywhere.
Wow.
And it's just a really big party every Thursday during the summer. And the connection that those people would make with me, and then you'd see them somewhere else and they're like, oh yeah, we see you at Ted's. And I'm like, I'm very realistic and, I can't remember everybody, but it is, you make a difference especially when you're bringing yourself to their own community. I feel like there's that like comfort of, this is my home turf, but then here's this person and she's here every week. And why is she so nice? And why is she like this? And I think that people really, they see someone that's acting like that with that kindness and welcoming attitude, and maybe they're not that way themselves, but they recognize it, and they might not know it at the time, but it's a magnet. It pulls them back, and I think that that's a big reason why I got into the food service industry, is because I realized that it was a way to make money. I mean, when you're a tipped employee,
Yeah.
If you genuinely care about these human beings, they're going to take care of you, and they're going to tip you well. And I think that's probably what originally was enticing to me about being in the restaurant industry. But then as my the years went on and I became a manager, it was really exciting to get to teach my employees how to care and how to connect with customers, and to watch people that were my employees do that is pretty special to see that happen.
Did any of those employees like really make a strong effort to where they started to see? Do you have any stories about like where like some people were really trying and seeing some?
Yeah, I had when I managed the subway in Rome City, which I don't know if you've ever been to Rome City, but it's not a very big city.
Okay.
But I had two younger girls that were in their early 20s that worked for me, and they both were very shy personalities, not very outgoing, very different like upbringing than I had, but and they both actually worked there before I had, so they weren't people that I had hired, but through getting to like work side by side with me, and just by me showing them like, hey, I'm willing to invest in you and help you, kind of figure this out. And when I left, actually, I handed the store off to one of them, and she had I'm not going to say that she would just turned into this like amazingly outgoing, fun, but she learned from me and, from her coworkers how to be a little bit more outgoing and how to care about customers. And so that was really a very proud moment to get to, watch someone grow as an employee enough to where they were able to take my position.
That's great. So it sounds like this idea of really being engaging and intentional with engaging with folks not only helps you practically from a restaurant world perspective of earning tips and money and like survival, and engaging and kind of growing your business, but there's this idea that the receiving end, the person that's on the other side, begins to feel welcomed, and we don't always get that experience. And when we get to be known and engaged with, then that starts to change things. Does Slinging Sunshine ever backfire? And curious in what ways? Like, surely there are people that like. Oh,
I'm sure there's people that don't like Katie out there. Like I know I've ruffled feathers before. I mean, you know how I am, and you've seen me when I'm on one and wound up, and I'm a pretty loud personality, and I've known to, like maybe drop an inappropriate saying or word here and there in a setting that's probably not appropriate, and that's backfired before.
Yeah.
More recently with the Slinging Sunshine, that's been like in my mind is just the awareness that it's not that I'm over here, oh, my life is great and I'm happy all the time, because it's not true.
Yeah.
And I do have periods of self-doubt, and I do have days when I feel like I can't leave my house.
Yeah.
But that's I hope people realize is that Slinging Sunshine doesn't have to be profound. I mean, at the end of the day, Slinging Sunshine is love.
Sure.
Slinging Sunshine is treating others how you want to be treated. And I'm really lucky that I have an awesome support system in my private life, that my cup is filled a lot by the human beings that I interact with a lot. So that, I mean, yes, am I a positive person? Absolutely. But it's not all the time.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's definitely been something that, as Slinging Sunshine has kind of become more of a thing,
Yeah.
it's important to me that people know, like, I'm still a real human being and
Sure.
I still have bad days.
Well, if Slinging Sunshine isn't always turned on, and you're not always in the restaurant world, in the work world, what does it look like? Do you feel a change between like when you're work Katie and public Katie versus like at home sitting on the front porch interacting? For instance, in NeighborLink, we often kind of talk about, or at least I talk about it in the NeighborLink's kind of like T-ball moments, when in our context of using technology as a way to connect with vulnerable homeowners. Like if you have a heart for volunteering, a heart for serving, and you're desiring, or if you have like from a faith and missional perspective, you're always trying to find opportunities to go and serve and connect with individuals. And NeighborLink really does that in a very turnkey way. We take the projects, we put them on our website, and you can go and you can like pick them, and then they're just kind of teed up. But when it goes from a really transactional type of work and engagement to relational or intentionality, or like gets very personal, being nice, being kind, doing the right thing in a NeighborLink context is drastically different than it is when I'm at home, or you're at your home, and the neighbor to the left and to the right, they're not going anywhere. And I'm most like myself, and I'm most protective of my assets when I'm at home. Curious from your experience, like, is there a change? Is there a difference? Like, what does this look like on Katie's home turf?
Yeah, it's probably not quite as turned on. I many years ago had a restaurant manager talk about an on-stage attitude. And I will be the first to admit that when I'm at work, there is an on-stage attitude that gets turned on. But at home, I live with my roommate, Kimmy, and I take a lot of pride in our neighborhood and the fact that I could probably name most of my neighbors.
Yeah, that's great.
We have a really cool front porch, and we spend a lot of time on that front porch. And when you live in the same place for long enough, you just get, and also I worked at Brava's, which is in the neighborhood, so
Yeah.
a lot of my neighbors were also customers. But it's really special. I have some neighbors, they're 2 doors down, Kenny and Lisa, and Kenny is a local musician who's kind of a big deal. His son also is a musician, and they're Brava's customers. And I remember one time Lisa came to Redeemer on a Wednesday night to get dinner, and this was a period when I didn't have a car. I was riding my bike, and
Okay.
we hadn't interacted a lot, but she came up to the window and she was very concerned with how I was getting home. And I was like, well, I'm going to ride my bike, Lisa. And she's like, all right, well, and she gave me her phone number and wanted me to know that if I ever needed anything that I should call her, and it was never too late, or boys were up late. And that's just like one example of interactions with neighbors. And it is kind of still turned on at home, even, I would say not to the degree, but it's just kind of, if I'm in a good spot and I'm, mentally checked in and feeling good about things, I love being in my neighborhood and walking to Friendly Fox or to Foster Park and getting to see my neighbors.
Yeah.
Because we care about each other.
Sure.
And they look out for me. And I think that's really special.
So in that same kind of context, we're not always on, and we're not always doing the best. What's the role of community played in you in terms of like when you're feeling out of sunshine, because we keep hanging on that, but I think it's appropriate. Like when you're, what does it look like to be poured back into, or the role of community in your life?
Yeah, I would say since I moved to Fort Wayne, and like I said, I moved to Fort Wayne for the people. Corey and Cody are some friends of mine that we've been pretty close friends for a while, and they were the ones that I was like, I want to live closer to these people because they fill my cup. And it's really interesting living with Kimmy, who is, when you talk about extrovert, introvert, she is the polar opposite from me. I would rather go out. She would rather stay in. But it's super fun to have this adult family that is made up of these close friends. Corey and Cody also, they live in the neighborhood next. So they're people that I see every day. And they've become my family. And so I'm lucky enough that I have these 3 adults that are in my daily life that look out for me and care about me, and not on a surface level, as in they're the people I can be turned off around.
Yeah.
And they're the people that I feel safest with. And it's honest, that's a lot of why I'm so positive, I think, is because I've got these humans that just want what's best for me and look out for me. And it's really special. And I also am very aware that it's not something that everybody has.
Sure.
So I think that, you know, if like you looked at a scale like 1 to 10, you know, if I'm having good days, I'm about an 8 normally.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is can be attested to that, those relationships that I have.
All right. So a couple of rapid fire kind of questions to wrap this up. If somebody is interested in or is feeling down or whatever, trying to figure out how to really kind of capture their life and like, you know, wants to know like how do they get find their own way or their own sunshine, or like this idea of being intentional, what do you say? What's your recommendation?
Well, they should follow me on Instagram.
All right. We'll just follow Katie.
Well, no,
follow Katie. Do
I
what
recently
Katie does. Make lemon bars.
Yeah.
Go on a baking spree. Make all the friends.
Yeah. No, I think that I read something recently and I shared it on Instagram, and it said something like, if you're not learning something every new on social media, you're doing it wrong. And I do think that that's important, that like you are your environment.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're someone that's looking to be sunshine, reach out to those people that are sunshine to you, and, you know, ask them how they do it, and, or just, you know, observe, you know, and just those little intentional interactions with human beings can have a huge impact.
Sure. If you're showing somebody from out of town around Fort Wayne, what are some of the things that you're taking them or suggesting they do in terms of like to get a neighboring kind of experience?
I think that our downtown is a fantastic place for that to happen. I love the coffee shops downtown. I hit up Conjure and Forteza a lot. I think that the murals downtown, I would be super proud to take someone around and show them all the local art that we have. There's great restaurants like Junk Ditch and Copper Spoon and Brava's that are fun communities in themselves that have cool people there. And I'm obsessed with Foster Park, and it's probably because it's close, but it's just so pretty in the summertime.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are, and then obviously like the Brass Rail for live music, because there's lots of great musicians in town too.
All right, so don't fray too far from downtown, which is great. I agree. However, the final question is, we try to end all these on, what does it mean to be a good neighbor, Katie?
I think that being a good neighbor means you're looking out for the people that are in your neighborhood and the people that the people you live by, and you're noticing and you make an effort to connect with them and have that relationship with them. If you're going to live by them, you know, you might as well know what their names are and what they do, and take them some chocolate chip cookies every once in a while,
All right.
you know.
Yeah. Well, great. Katie, thanks for being on this
for
episode
having
of
me.
Neighboring and kicking off season 2 for us, and sharing what you've been learning and trying to become. And hopefully there's some things that you've shared, this conversation is shared, that really connects to some folks, and hopefully they connect to you and keep on their own journey of being intentional around wherever they're at. Thanks for tuning in to Neighboring Season 2, Episode 1 with Katie Jo. Seriously, if you don't know Katie, get to know her on social media or find her around town. Not very hard to find. Be friends, get to know her, let her welcome you into kind of her circle. And Neighboring is coming back. We hope to continue this on a weekly basis for most of the year, if not all year. Each week, bringing a different person, different conversation that really relates to neighboring and this idea of what does it mean to be a good neighbor. We're all on that journey. So if you have ideas, topics, people we should meet and have on the podcast, we would love for your suggestions. So leave a comment, send us an email through the website, and we'll do that. Thanks for tuning in.